Here are the key moments from the match between Chelsea and Manchester City. Manchester City's clean sheet against Chelsea was a result of several key factors, such as solid defensive organization, midfield control, effective pressing, key saves by Ederson, tactical substitutions, and team discipline. Don't miss out on this analysis that sheds light on the dark side of match-opening season Premier League between Chelsea and Manchester City. Please use subscribe, like, and share to stay informed about the latest developments in 2024-2025 season. Now, let's analyze the match properly.
And the difference is we need to go back to last season. Pep is well renowned for wanting to dominate the midfield, by not only having his best players here, but also by overloading the middle. Last season, he primarily achieved this through a box midfield, with a fullback moving narrow to create the four. But attacking problems began to emerge for the citizens when teams were aggressively defending the centre in 4-4-2s and 4-2-4s. Pep's solution for this was switching back to a more traditional back four, with the fullbacks wide so they could get around the narrow block and allow them to play here. And this was a good fix, but Pep wants perfection. And there were two things wrong with this. Having a back two instead of a three meant that they were now vulnerable to counterattacks in the fullback zones. And in possession, the players seeing the most of the ball for them were the fullbacks, both of whom are more defensive fullbacks. Today we got a sneak peek into how Pep might be looking to address both these issues. For almost the entire 90, we saw him stick with a back three in the build-up, giving them coverage and protection in the wide regions in counter-attacking situations. And where before we might have seen Rico Lewis invert to be the second pivot, today he moved into this position instead. A seemingly subtle tweak, but it changed the Manchester City dynamic completely. Now they had a single pivot and a diamond in midfield instead of a box. What this meant is that if Chelsea were looking to compact the centre in their 4-2-3-1 like we saw teams do last season, the City centre-backs would have space to pick out the wingers up the line to try and get them into 1v1 situations. And having two excellent dribblers like Doku and Savinho meant if they managed this, they would be in extremely dangerous positions and pose much more danger here than last season, where it was the fullbacks who were the first wide receivers. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, because the wide centre-backs having this much room on the ball meant Palmer in particular could be drawn high up into the press. And that created a massive space here that De Bruyne would look to take advantage of by dropping in immediately so that he would be the first wide option, receiving in space and facing the rest of the pitch. So KDB could look to receive and use his excellent vision to progress the play, carry the ball up the pitch himself, or play a simple pass into a winger who was now completely isolated against the fullback. But it didn't end there. Realizing he had this room out wide, De Bruyne could creep higher up the pitch, and the winger, whether Doku or Savinho, shifted into the half space, so now Gusto would be genuinely 2 versus 1 down as long as Palmer was high, meaning one of these two City men would be receiving in plenty of room. In other words, big danger. The benefits of this system did not end there, because Chelsea could not simply continue to give the widest City man acres of space here. So when Palmer was pressing higher up, one pivot would be forced to come across to cover De Bruyne, while the other would then cover either Bernardo or the winger. That helped to defend Chelsea's left-hand side, but not the right. Because with Lewis in this higher position, if Nkunku was not completely switched on, Rico Lewis would be able to receive in this position, with Doku giving him a great option in plenty of space outside him. Or Lewis could mainly function to draw in the fullback as a dummy runner and facilitate the pass into the lethal wingers, exactly what City wanted. And this factors into the opening goal. Gvardiol is on the ball and draws Palmer, And this time, it's Doku receiving first with plenty of room to turn. So Caicedo has to come across because you don't want to leave Doku 1v1, and Lavia does the same onto De Bruyne, and though the pass isn't perfect, he's able to find Haaland for the goal. So Chelsea could begin to become more passive in the wide regions as they look to protect themselves, but the danger was far from over. Fernandes was looking to keep a close eye on Kovacic in the pivot position, as any central play had to go through him, and Maresca wanted to shut that down completely. So Chelsea often ended up defending in a 4-4-2, with Kovacic being able to drop deeper to draw Fernandes even higher. Despite not having the box, the diamond meant that City were still 4 versus 3 up by default against the midfield of Chelsea. Kovacic and Fernandes' private battle deeper meant there was now a 3 versus 2 in the midfield instead. So when Kovacic or the centre-back could pierce this initial resistance from Chelsea, all of a sudden Rico Lewis or any other midfielder could be found high up, and now City were running at a much more vulnerable defence.
Here are the key moments from the match between Chelsea and Manchester City. Manchester City's clean sheet against Chelsea was a result of several key factors, such as solid defensive organization, midfield control.
This might be the best example of all of this, as Kovacic draws Fernandes, allowing Lewis to receive. Now Lewis draws Lavia, facilitating a 1v1 for Savinho. Savinho is easily past Cucurella, and Bernardo draws Caicedo, giving KDB the space for a shot from an excellent position. But the advantages of this new system are still not over, as we need to talk about Bernardo Silva. He was entrusted to know when to drift around the pitch, which he loves to do, but he really made it